Support passives aren't something you care much about in regular gameplay, especially now that chain battles are the standard. This isn't the case for solos, as the passives from bench IDs can enable this kind of masochistic gameplay. I tried making this video as timeless as I could. Obviously new IDs with new support passives will come through updates, and sometimes there's going to be a new best in slot, but as long as you can understand the process of choosing one passive over another, you will be fine. With that out of the way, let's get our defenses up. Generally speaking, damage reduction is going to be better than a defense level up because of how damage calculations work. The same is true for dealing more damage because the offense-defense level calculation happens before the other types of increase or decrease from passives. Also something diminishing returns. So, LCB Sinner Mersault and Zweisauth Sinclair both give a solid 10% damage reduction each. T-Cordon also provides a 10% resist, but you also need to inflict tremor on the enemy. Luckily, even if your ID can't, Nixie Divergence and Oscillating Bracelet can, and they're either a tier 1 or tier 2 gifts. Also downpour, but that's a tier 4 gift. Both Zweisauth Gregor and West Ishmael grant defense level ups, and if your ID has a Gloom Affinity skill, you can take advantage of Zweisauth Faust's 2 or 4 defense level ups by chaining together 2 Gloom skills. Or you can do the same with Elkopran and Faust with last skills instead to gain +2 defense skill final power. Technically Zwei West Sinclair is also an option, but 3 defense level up is a bit worse than South's 10% damage reduction, and it also only activates on turn end, meaning it only becomes active once the second turn starts. Middle Sinclair is a great segue into the next category, as he by default only grants 2 defense level ups, but if your solo guy is another middle ID, then you get 2 offense level ups as well. It's still not that great, but at least it's on combat start instead of turn end. Think Tank Gang leader Honglu and LCB Rodion increase the damage of your head flips by 20% each. Kurokomo Heathcliff lets you deal 10% more damage against enemies at max health or ones that use the defensive skill. If that's not your thing, Base Heathcliff grants 10% blunt damage, while Orcor Heathcliff does the same with Pierce alongside LCB Don. Shidon increases slash damage by 10%, and if you're feeling brave, you can replace Zwei Sinclair with Mariachi to get a damage increase instead of more survivability. And that's all that I'd recommend using in general. Of course, depending on the ID's keyword, some other options will be better, but this is a good general idea for what to bring. For example, Enclair increases blunt damage by 10% or up to 20% depending on how little sanity your ID has. But you'd not only need to ditch Zwei's protection, you'd also need to give up Mariachi's general 10% damage increase, which I guess works the opposite to Enclair's, with it needing the enemy to be at a lower sanity, but you get my point. Chef Ryoshu and Barbarotis heal you after killing an enemy, and then you have to choose between your 3 favorite Gregor flavors. Antifreeze needs 3 Gloom for 5 HP at the start of a turn, Marmalade is the same with 5 Lust instead, and Nether really changes it up by doing the healing after a Clash win instead of a turn start. This also means that you heal a lot more with G-Corp than the other 2, because it's not capped to activate only once per turn. In the past I recommended LCB and Chef for IDs that can abuse their healing by keeping one enemy alive and defending away, because depending on how patient you are, that can be a full heal after every fight. However, I forgot to mention that there's a more important factor to consider, which is the same resources your ID can generate. It is much better to just take one that you can generate resources for than picking one you won't be able to activate until you get resource generation later in the run. G-Corp heals a lot more in general gameplay, but after you get some healing gifts, his healing becomes rather insignificant, as do the other 2, which is why I usually switch to Zwei Gregor for extra defense once I get past floor 5. Technically speaking, Priest also heals, but that requires Last Resonance and it is capped, so at that point you are just better off bringing Chef instead. Lantern Dawn is a really good healing option for IDs with aggro, like Sloshman. K-Corp Honglu is one of the healing options of all time, as he heals max HP percentage with his ampules, but you need a 4x Gluttony Resonance. Not many IDs can benefit from this, and those who can will either die before the 4th turn or won't need the healing. Now for the bench IDs, I couldn't fit into one of these categories. G-Corp Otis is a great idea to switch to once you get healing gifts. The defense level up she gives isn't that useful, but the protection and the attack power up is pretty good to have if you get them. Generally speaking, you don't want to use support passives that grant sanity, because they just make corroding a lot more difficult. Except for Ring Yi-Seng and Butler Faust specifically when you are using Wingbeat or Solemn Lament, as these eagles drain your sanity, and in the case of Wingbeat you need to hit heads for the reuses, while Solemn Lament only needs to stay above 0 sanity. Regret Faust gives the enemies -1 clash power if they have at least 3 negative effects. Even if your solo guy inflicts no debuffs whatsoever, I still think this is really easy to do thanks to a lot of ego gifts. For negative coin IDs, Linton Gregor reduces sanity by 7 at threat spin 3 or 5 at threat spin 4 on combat start. Potential Man further reduces SP by 10 and grants blunt damage up next turn. Useful for both Enclair and half of Queen of Hatred Dawn due to them only having blunt skills. Knight of Desperadoon gives final power to negative coin skills at -15 sanity or at -30 SP. It can also give a 15% damage bonus to these skills as well. And finally, Princess Rodion and Fan Canton Glue reduce your breeding. reduce your breeding. So, let's make a team to show off what we've learned. I will be using She Ishmael for this example because everyone has her and she is really easy to do a solo run with thanks to the She Ego gift you can pick at the start. Because her skill 2 is lost, I will be using Sous Chef as my flavor of Gregor. Then Chef Ryoshu and Barber Otis finish out the healers. I switch to Twice Out Sinclair for the damage reduction and keep in Base Marceau for the same reason. Kurokomo Heathcliff, Think Tank Honglu, Shidon, and LCB Rodion will be increasing her damage output. I would normally use the Cordon for more damage reduction, but I think the She Association IDs are tanky enough due to resolution. And Blessing, like holy shit, Blessing is probably the most broken ego gift in the game, it's that good. And we finish off with Butler Faust and Ring Yiseng because I have Wing Beat. If I didn't have Wing Beat, I would probably choose Regret Faust for easier clashing and Bia Yiseng for more poise count from her skill too. And that about does it. The next video in this guide series will be about starting ego gifts, mainly about why Fluorescent Lamp is the GOAT. As always, leave your questions, complaints and suggestions down below. Even if I don't respond, I still try to read all of your comments. Also, I try to stream solos at least once a week, so I hope to see you there. I've been Silver, see you around. Dame da ne, dame yo, dame nano yo. Anta ga suki de, suki sugite. Dore dake tsuyoi o sake demo yugamanai omoide ga baka mitai. Honna ni roku na otoko nayai. Soroi no yubi wa hazu shimasu. Zama miro seisei suru wa nan nano yo kono namida baka mitai. Someone talks your question, please put it on. Oh! I was in way too deep with the singing.